In 2008, when the DY Patil Stadium was created, Dr. Vijay Patil may have been confronted with a unique problem. One that has haunted all great innovators of their times. What next? What could possibly come after creating a structure that defines the zeitgeist of its times? How does one push the envelope even further? The only logical next step would be to bend the laws of nature to create something architecturally inconceivable. To give back. And if all goes well, in this process, you'd end up making a monument.
Ego is the death of life and death of ego is real life. It would be difficult for me to kind of describe in one sentence what my father, Dr. DY Patil, stands for. Personally for me, he's been my living God.
The DY Patil Group rests on a legacy that is more than just a telltale. The group has worked tirelessly to provide opportunities to the local people with ethos like education, healthcare and culture at their core. In less than 5 decades, the group has become synonymous with positive change and has produced architectural wonders like the Navi Mumbai Educational Institution in 1983, their first cricket ground in 1993, the DY Patil Sports Academy in 1999 and the DY Patil Stadium in 2008. But for Dr. Patil,
the question was what next? What would be the thing that would inspire me or challenge me in terms of creating a facility that would, truly inspire.
And what came next for Dr. Patil was a decision to return to the very roots of his father's original mission: educational excellence. But when someone's taking on a task as intimidating as bringing back India's rich academic glory, where does one even start?
So I was researching the architects which I would want to engage in this particular project, and the ambition was always to create a facility which would be second to none. Through this process, thanks to the marvel of internet and search technologies, I happened to browse on the Foster+Partners office based out of London.
Foster+Partners is a British architectural, engineering and integrated design practice founded in 1967 by Sir Norman Foster, one of the largest architectural practices in the world.
So we're designing buildings right down to chairs.
Most of Foster+Partners projects have become cultural and artistic icons in their own rights, like the Gherkin in London, the Apple Park in Cupertino, the Hearst Tower in New York, the Reichstag, and many more. And now, they're finally in India for the first time ever.
I recollect my first day when I walked into the Foster+Partners office, and our initial brief for the project was a one-page brief where we put down what we envisaged for the facility.
I sort of take a deep breath and say, okay, I've got to process that. But I knew he could do it because he's already produced the 55,000-seater stadium next door. And so there is a good track record.
I can tell you now that that concept note of about 2 pages has now expanded into a couple of rooms which are filled with reports outlining every little detail of this facility.
Dr. Patil was very clear that he wanted to put a faculty of management, a faculty of law, faculty of accounting, economics in place which would rival the key faculties around the world, if you like. We're talking about Harvard, Yale, and to make a building that would compete with those, not just architecturally, but give the framework for the educational programs.
History can conceal facts, geography cannot. A lot of the inspiration that you get in life is from observing things that happen around you. Well, I recollect one of my trips to Rome, and I was on a holiday, and I was looking at all the ancient monuments in Rome and the Colosseum, and even in Milan. And you saw beautiful travertine marble, which has probably lasted the test of time over centuries. And I inquired about the source of that marble, and I was told that there was a mine about 2 hours drive from Rome in Tivoli where travertine marble is mined. I took that drive to Tivoli and I saw the mine over there. I had a conversation with the suppliers, and then when I came back to India, I got in touch with my contractors, and slabs of marble were imported from Italy, brought to Silvassa, cut in tile form, and they've been put at this facility. So it gives it a very very unique look, and I think it's something that will stand the test of time, and it's something that we see in some of the most ancient monuments around the world.
I was part of the team that visited America, and we visited West Coast, East Coast both. We did the Harvard Business School, we went to Yale School of Management, Wharton, Stanford, Berkeley, NYU Stern, and many more. We visited almost the entire campus, and it was a tour to absorb, understand what is going in to make sure they've been listed as one of the best universities around the world.
We did quite a few studies of how people move around. Of course, the computational flow can determine what people are likely to do, and then you can frustrate it and make them do something more interesting, or make them go a different way to have a chance of meeting somebody else. Or if we go into the library space, you'll notice that it's an entirely different form to the other atria spaces. And that's for that reason, to give a greater sort of closeness in a way. It's more intimate. You see people at a closer space, but at the same time you have your own space. At the heart of it is the idea of communication, bringing people together to communicate effectively with each other, to develop ideas.
Architecture is applied art. It is created for people to not only perceive but also use and interact with. And whenever we add humans to the equation, we inevitably add a layer of behavioral psychology. To this end, the most accomplished architects understand that as disciplines, psychology and architecture are inextricably linked with each other. Every square inch of the center of excellence is designed in a way to enhance and encourage specific human behaviors. For example, even something as seemingly ordinary as the corridors are designed to elicit a certain psychological response from us.
Are trying to solve quite a complex jigsaw, but also within very tight constraints. I suppose the task there is how do you get quite a lot of people, quite a lot of building on such a small site, but make it a very nice place to be. The educational construction can go up to 30 metres high, but no more. But the residential construction can go up to 45 metres. So you very immediately get this strata that can come in, and you can see it in these models where the residential component can go higher than the faculty component, and we use that. It's a very powerful tool. It's not from us, it's from the city. The upper structure is steel, whereas the lower structure is concrete. That's because it's hung, so it's going to be lighter as a steel structured building. In a way, it's counterintuitive because you take you have a load, and the load path goes up and then back down to big columns. So you wouldn't do it unless you had a very good reason to do it. And in this case, the very good reason is that it enables that garden to exist.
At the first glance, most people don't realize that there's something rather curious going on in the gardens. The entire residential section hangs above it, but there are no columns or pillars.
What we did was take up the very big grid columns to the top of the residential, and then we hung in steel the residences. So we keep those lecture theatres and auditoriums clear, we keep the garden clear.
The transverse garden is home to about 700 plant species, from shrubs like the Jasminum sambac to evergreen trees like Spathodia campanulata.
So it acts as a divider between the academic spaces and the residential facilities for students. It's just a green oasis between this residential facility and the academic instructional areas.
The selection of plants not only lends to the garden's serenity, but also firmly places it as one of the most extensively researched botanical gardens in any educational institutions in India. The Centre of Excellence doesn't only draw inspiration from India, it also simultaneously pays homage to it. The design language draws its artistry from India's rich cultural heritage.
Initially, as I said, in the concept stage, the architecture team did a lot of surveys of a lot of places around India. The architectural style of forts in Rajasthan, in Delhi. The town square which we have designed for this facility draws inspiration from various, traditional Indian auditoriums or amphitheaters which have been built in forts. The facade that you see is a modern adaptation of the Jali system. I think I can say this modestly that this building has probably the most extensively researched facade that has been designed for any building in India. Every room, every aspect, every orientation of the building, every square feet of the internal space has been computer modeled using sophisticated facade design software to analyze the daylight patterns, to analyze the amount of light that comes through those facilities across the entire year, across all the different seasons which Navi Mumbai experiences.
I don't know, the moment I enter here, I love this space. I look back my college days. It's some memory, that kind, and it's something satisfaction. My husband created something like this in India. That is really, I cherish every day.
If you're in the canteen, you want a better view of the cricket than you do if you're in a lecture theatre where you're supposed to be concentrating on the on the studies, and so we can tighten it up there. If we go to the staircases, they're all external. None of them are in internal space, but they're shaded with this system, but this time with a very tight shading system, in order that they're comfortable places to be in without any glass. There's nothing stopping the air travelling through that space, and they are comfortable.
So fair face concrete was a extremely important element of what the building stood to represent. Just to explain what fair face concrete is, like it's just concrete with a certain texture, but it's one of the most durable materials that one can use in construction. You know, requires very little maintenance in terms of use, and it provides a unique quality in terms of aesthetics to your facility.
We liked what we came up with and we built it.
The auditorium models itself after a Mughal courtyard. On each side of the auditorium is a lecture hall, two with a capacity of 150 and the other two with a capacity of 250.
A flexible space is of course in demand. Different size spaces are in demand. It's not always going to be a 2,000, 2,500 person event. Sometimes it'll be a few hundred. We do it by closing off each of the auditoria, or closing off one of them at a time, so that they're all usable individually, and you can open up one or more to the central space at a time. You get these balconies, which are the circulation of the teaching spaces above, and students and staff and friends and family can watch from there. We were in construction before we finished that idea, because Dr. Patil said to us at one point, you know, we have one too many or two too many of these smaller auditoriums. What will you do if I take that one out? And that immediately opened up the idea that we could finish the circle. We had 3 sides of our auditorium, but the 4th side was used for much smaller teaching spaces. And when he announced that he didn't need that anymore, we were able to put the 4th auditorium in.
It can accommodate close to 3,000 spectators for a singular event, when all those 4 auditoriums are thrown open for any public gathering. So the design of the classroom plays a fundamental part in having faculty and students have that role and interaction in a classroom environment. I related to you some of my experiences of visiting some of the Ivy League institutions in the US and also in Europe. And of course the recurring theme was that to make sure that faculty and students have an environment where they can interact with each other. They're not at a distance.
Generally speaking, the Harvard model, which is basically a horseshoe, and that was developed at Harvard, obviously, by the team who realized that the eye contact of every person in the room to every other person in the room is a really useful thing. It means that the conversation is not between the lecturer and a student, it's between everyone, all at the same time. And so you're learning as much from each other as you are from the professor or facilitator or lecturer or whatever you want to call them. We add on top of that, obviously, getting the acoustics right, getting all of any digital functionality correct, but we've also got daylight and ventilation into all of those spaces. not all lecture theatres do have, and as you know, going into a black box is with artificial illumination is one thing, but once you have a wall with daylight, then that's a much nicer thing.
As far as the journey is concerned, it's been a long journey, but as they say, all good things take time. The design phase took us almost 2.5, 3 years, and then of course construction started. As I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of challenges in terms of execution because of the demands and the high quality parameters which were there for this project. The tolerance levels for errors and whether it's for construction or for architecture were in few millimeters. I recollect so many occasions when we had to redo things if the tolerances were above a particular threshold, in some cases as little as 10 millimeters or 20 millimeters. But then we didn't take those shortcuts. We wanted to stay true to the design intent of what we had envisaged this project to be. So the construction phase took its time. And then in between all that, we had to, of course, endure the pandemic. It was not just only about us, the world came to a halt.
Shifting focus, let's talk about the COVID-19 situation in the maximum city. Mumbai could be facing another lockdown soon with a massive spike in cases of COVID-19 over the last few days. Mumbai mayor has warned that the city could be forced into another lockdown.
In March of 2020, at the onset of the pandemic, the fast approaching reality of establishing the Centre of Excellence turned into a distant dream, bringing a shift to Dr. Patil's priorities.
Dr. Patil is driven from Worli to Navi Mumbai in his car. We've reached the hospital. We've done meetings with doctors, nurses, administrative staff, made sure that the oxygen piping is intact. We can definitely provide oxygen for patients, defined protocols, no guidelines set up. The only focus at that time for Sir was to make sure that the hospital is prepared and we can give back to the society in some form or the other.
I am filled with a great sense of pride and admiration for the incredible work he has done. Watching him tirelessly pursue his dreams and sacrifice his personal time to ensure his vision for the school becomes reality.
With international travel coming to a sudden halt, Foster+Partners were unable to visit the site and see the project to its completion.
Those were 2 years that we had to wait patiently till everything kind of restarted again. And it's been a span of almost 9 years till the point where we have reached now, where this building has been will be ready for commencing all our academic programs.
In the middle of a global pandemic, nationwide lockdowns and halted construction. With remote video conferencing and online coordination, Foster+Partners and Dr. Patil powered through the last leg of the journey, making an unconventional intercontinental collaboration work.
But I think it's true in the sense that if you dream of something and you desire it and you pursue that dream with dedication, devotion, perseverance, then you will surely succeed and you'll be able to achieve your goals. So that's a lesson that I've learned even in the past projects whether it was the cricket stadium or for that matter the Centre of Excellence. I think it's something that that's something that's worked for me.
We said to a few people around the studio, show me your colours of India, what do you feel? We took those and said, now lay them out in a grid. And we didn't do it any more scientifically than that. If I take the materials, then you see at the School of Excellence raw concrete quite a lot. You see raw timber. You see raw glass reinforced concrete for those shades. You see stone on the floor. And you don't really see very much else. We don't need more than that because those materials being used in their raw form are timeless. We're trying to keep a building which is going to be relevant for 200 years.
one part of our journey is over, but the real journey, the second phase of the journey begins now, and it's about the programs that we run in this facility. So we expect this center to be a real melting pot of great academicians, students, researchers coming together, collaborating and working towards the enhancement of knowledge.
I hope the students will come and be inspired. There is care, there is joy, and there is real effort to give them a learning environment that is special. It's as good as it can be for the technology that we have. It has everything that you expect in a teaching spaces, but on top of that there's intangibles that just make you feel, lift your spirits when you come in. And if that happens to some of the students, that's great. If it happens to most of them, that's wonderful. Would love that to be a legacy. Is the building a monument? It's not an aim of an architect.